Hi there. Welcome to another update from MDH Accounting. My name is Michael Harvey, and this time I just want to provide a bit of an overview of where interest rates are at and sort of see where they might play out in 2023. So last week we had the RBA meeting for the first time in 2023, and they announced another 0.25% rise in interest rates. And most of the major banks pretty much passed it on straight away. So looking at the front page of the Financial Review, we're now at 3.35%, the base rate that the RBA has set, which translates pretty much to about another 3%, 2.5% to 3% margin the banks charge. So we're now at about 6 to 6.25%, 6.5% interest rates on our mortgages. And yeah, so that's come through last week. First increase for 2023, although that's the first one the RBA have met. Before Christmas, the forecasters were looking at probably another 0.5% rise in early part of 2023. So we're halfway there. I think the thing that surprised me the most was the RBA commentary around that they're sort of what they call hawkish commentary, which means that they're sort of probably trying to scare people into saying there's a lot more pain coming towards us to really try to dampen inflation. So if you look at what the RBA strategy is to dampen inflation, which headline rate was around 8% just before Christmas. And they're trying to get it down into their long-term range of 2 to 3%, which is a big difference. So their very blunt instrument they've got available to themselves is to both put up interest rates and also the commentary around that they're going to even be more pain in store for people and for people to leave their hands in their pockets and not go spending. And we're probably seeing that now in the property market with both the price drops, the auction rate clearances, the days on market are all showing a much greater slowdown. That people, I call it people just putting their hands in their pockets. If they don't need to buy at the moment, don't need to sell, then let's just ride this storm and see where it all lands. Forecast wise, as I said, before Christmas, the pundits, so to speak, were forecasting another 0.5% rise in early part of 2023, and then a bit of a pause to see what the flow on effect in terms of people's behaviour looks like. The forecasters now are looking probably at a rise. I'll just once again consult the AFR front page. So they're saying currently 3.35, forecast by December this year 4.0, so another 0.65%. So they're probably the pundits are pricing in another 0.25% rise or thereabouts. So another 0.5% from where we are today. The commentary is about the high level of fixed interest rates that people have on their mortgage and other loans. They come off in sort of around the middle of the year and what impact that may have. As I said before, it's a fairly blunt instrument that RBA have got in that if you look at in rough terms, the adult population, about a third of us are mortgage holders and having a mortgage over our own property. About a third of us are renters these days, and about a third of us are self-funded, have paid their mortgage off, retirement, or have paid their mortgage off and are probably investors back in the market. So you look at that, and deposit rates around nearing 4% at the moment, when they were sort of 0.5% probably. When was this? Probably 8 months ago. So they're sort of, I suppose, the winners. So we are seeing some winners and losers through this blunt instrument the RBA have got. The losers are pretty much the mortgage holders and probably those who have purchased in the last 2 or 3 years, where banks probably 2 and a bit years ago were using a 2% interest rate buffer when they assessed people for loan approvals. That went up to 3% probably 18 months ago. and we're now seeing the reality is that it's probably 3.5%, pushing 4% coming up, if the forecast is right, of an extra interest cost over and above of what the interest rate was at the time when people first took out a loan. So why 3 years? So 3 years, if you've held a house for longer than 3 years, you should have, in theory, quite a bit of equity built up. So it gives scope for you and the bank to have a conversation to say, well, times are tight at the moment. I've got enough equity, so I need to do a redraw or just extend the term of the loan a bit forward. I'm sort of seeing that even with my bank, Westpac, they're sort of, some of my loans, they're sort of, when they write to me, interest rates gone up. Sometimes they write to you, say, well, the repayments have changed, and sometimes they just say, we're just going to keep the repayments the same, and sort of, if with your consent, just increase the term of the loan. So, and I think the underlying rationale and confidence is still the really low unemployment rate we have here. So even though I think the RBA are trying to smash inflation by breaking the economy, either recession or close to it, the underlying confidence still from the banks and other industries is that we've really got really low unemployment. Most of my clients, when I speak to them, they're still finding good people, or finding people. The workforce is one of their number one issues. Seeing some headlines at the moment, some layoffs, News Corp and tech companies and the like. Seeing it in pockets, but not really seeing it across the board at this point in time. So if you are one of the sort of unfairly treated, if you want to use that term, relatively new home buyers, I suppose, to give you confidence, I still see, even though the headline will be a price drop in the short term from what they call peak to trough. So the headline will say, 20% price drop in property. So that's from a peak to trough. So bearing in mind, during COVID, property prices nationally just took off. So we're not seeing like a spiral. It is a peak and trough scenario. The other thing to give people confidence on property is that, one, Australia's inherent love affair with property. Secondly, you look at the macro numbers, that we're now moving into net migration, 200,000 plus coming into the country again. And part of that's to alleviate employment problems. They've all got to live somewhere. And what I'm sort of anecdotally seeing is no real new approvals coming through, especially, say, if you look at some Melbourne and Sydney, the larger capital cities, those large high-rise apartment blocks, they're just not being put on the drawing boards at the moment because it's hard to get finance and people are not sure where it's at. But we're seeing this net migration, as I said. We're seeing the reintroduction of students, overseas students, into our universities. And I was reading something the other day that I think China have now said they're not going to recognise degree qualifications unless they've been received in the country where the people are getting their qualification from. So we'll probably see more Chinese students coming out to Australia, and Indian students coming through as well. So that's going to put some extra demand on housing. So I suppose for property owners, I think the macro picture of the next, if we see beyond the next 12 months, is that property prices should start to increase, not rebound necessarily, but it's not going to be like an ongoing trend that your property prices will head down. Renters are in for just a problem in terms of cost of living pressures, unfortunately. So it's probably no good news in that. Just the basic economic equation of supply and demand. As supply tightens, demand will increase, therefore rents will increase as well. Some of that is obviously interest rates going up that landlords will look to pass through, and some is just general market forces. So for the people who've purchased housing in the last 3 years, as I said, if you can hold on and get through this cycle, I really encourage that. What does that mean? It means some changes, and really you've got an income and expense questions to work through. Income wise, is there ways of doing moonlighting, other types of income that you can generate? Talk to your boss about pay rise or what it might look like. Expenses, you do have some options. They are sort of, I suppose, limited because a fixed portion is going into your mortgage. We were also reading an article the other day, 5 easy changes. I reckon you get $12,000 savings this year, which is optimistic. But some of the examples, some of these are just examples, is that obviously with energy prices and phone accounts and the like increasing, then shopping around, looking at fuel apps to get the cheapest price. So really looking at how you can save those few extra cents in your household living expense budget. Reviewing how many subscriptions you have. During COVID, we all sort of went a bit overboard and grabbed a few other subscriptions. Do we really need all those going forward? Looking at and shopping for food and be more selective. My old classic of Tyrrell chips, which I love, I sort of hardly bought in the last few weeks because they haven't been on special. They've been about $6 a packet, and I'm going, wow, I just can't bring myself to that. But strawberries have been on the special, so a bit of change there for myself. And I must admit, I did have some Smith's chips, which are not quite anywhere near as healthy, but they do make me feel all right now on special. So yeah, but I suppose just being a bit more penny pinching on our food going forward. Things we've spoken about before: refinancing your home loan. There's cashbacks on offer, so certainly worth having a conversation with a mortgage broker or your bank itself, having a look at that. Our classic, where we've in the last couple of decades we've had the coffee culture, and not wanting to pick on the coffee vendors, but I'm not a coffee drinker, so I can easily say this. If you're probably paying $5 to $7 a day if you're having a coffee a day, and that quickly mounts up to $2,500 over the course of a year if you're having a couple of cups a day. So it's worth just reassessing those sort of patterns of behaviour that we've got into when times get tough. Just having a look at a lot of the little things that have crept into our household spends over the last few years when interest rates have been so low and rents have been probably more manageable. So just a few tips for those people where they're at. So in summary, interest rates, the way the pundits are saying, we're probably looking at another 2 to 3 rate rises the rest of calendar 2023. So another 0.5 to 0.75% rise from where we are today. So you're factoring in interest rates of probably around the 7% into your budgeting. So confidence from the bank, confidence in the long-term property market, conversations with your bank to be had to try to work through adding to the term of the loan or refinancing a loan or changing who you bank with as well to get through this if you're a property owner and on the margins. Talk to people. There's some winners and losers, unfortunately, and the winners are people that have paid off their mortgage and getting greater returns. So the bank of mum and dad will probably get a bit of a shuffle and a tap on the door over the next little while as well. And that's just part of the ebbs and flows. If you are just watching, you just need to watch your pennies, but be confident that relative terms, job security will be here. Interest rates like this won't go back to what they were before, but I think they're not going to go to extreme levels as well from where we are today, but it does make it very tight for people. So hopefully that's been good, helpful information going forward, and best of luck in managing this interesting times, as they say, in a higher interest rate environment. Thanks for listening.